Okay, so welcome to today's VR cast, again on the Engage platform. We have Stefano Corazza, the VP and Fellow of Adobe Augmented Reality with me. Welcome, Stefano.
Thank you for having me here.
Really nice to have you here. We have quite a few viewers always also on the stream. Yeah, so who's sitting outside. That's also why the screen is pretty large in the background, so that they can see it as well. And so I'm really too excited today to have Stefano with us for this VR cast session. Before we get started, Abid, are we good with the presentation?
We are indeed. If you'd like to look behind yourself, yep.
Yeah.
Then you'll
Excellent.
be able to see that there.
Okay, wonderful. That's great. So yeah, again, welcome. My name is Michael Alf, VR Business Club member and host together with Oliver from your VR Business Club for the VR cast, and we're bringing exciting, interesting guests to you to discuss. So there will be a short presentation, but then the main one is obviously question and answers, and to have that access and the opportunity to really discuss with the experts here what's going on. Before we start, I really appreciate also kind of the flag of the Ukraine with what is happening at the moment, which is kind of undescribable, and I think we need to do everything together, to support the nation, and so I think we appreciate that you also start with that flag. Before we go into the topic, I would like to pass on. I would like to pass on briefly the word to Abid from Engage to talk about kind of 2 or 3 sentences about the platform and the beautiful environment we have here. So you can see this beautiful tree out there with a red, which probably you can't see on the stream, but if you are here, so therefore next time, I suggest you really join here actually in the environment, either obviously with a VR headset or with a PC. So Abid, do you want to kind of talk a little bit about kind of the platform and Engage?
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you for having me. Always excited to participate in these events. Hi, everybody. My name's Abid. I'm one of the business developers here at Engage. The platform that you're either participating in or streaming to has been running for about 8 years now. We're based out of Ireland, and we have over 80 plus different locations. It's going to be, if it's not already, the alternative to how you work and meet and socialize and so forth. I thoroughly invite you on our next meeting to come into Engage and explore a little more. So thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you so much, Abid. Yeah, it's a great platform. Check that out. Abid really provides great tours with all the opportunities here with the environment. With that, let's move to the presentation of today and the discussion. And again, obviously, the hottest topic as we speak is the metaverse. Yeah, so everybody talks about the metaverse, especially since the renaming, obviously, and I'm using Oculus, which is also part of the Meta group. But the metaverse has been around longer than Meta, obviously. But it's really one of the most important topics. Also Southwest was obviously a big discussion. Next to things like NFTs and cryptos, is the metaverse really one of the key trends and developments. And so that's why I'm happy really to have Stefano here to talk about that and to talk about a key aspect. When you think about the metaverse, it's wonderful to have these beautiful environments, where you really feel great, and you you meet and you can explore all kind of things. But obviously, the other key component is content. And this is the focus of today's presentation and the discussion, content creation, and who better to hand that over than Adobe. Stefano, over to you.
Thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate, and also thank you for the kind words around the tragedy that is happening in Ukraine. I figure we cannot start without that. We can go to the third slide. And so the way, when we talk about metaverse, we like to start with something that at least gives a map of what it is. And we have actually launched a web page at Adobe adobe.com/metaverse last week for our summit event. And we have put together there a lot of information for businesses to get what we call Metaverse-ready. So there's a white paper, and also we try to explain and create a taxonomy of what the Metaverse is and how businesses can prepare for all the content that will be needed. We can go to the next slide. And so I like to start with like a map of the kind of flavors, if you want, of Metaverse, because people are asking us, is AR Metaverse, is VR, is only VR a Metaverse? Is Twitter a Metaverse, right? And so the definition of Metaverse is basically this online environment that is persistent, that is basically the intersection, if you want, of like gaming and a virtual world, and sometimes the concept of map plays a big role in there. And it's where basically we can interact with other people through a digital interaction. That's kind of like the broad definition, but we have seen very different type of metaverses, and I'm going to start from the right, the purple one. If you want, you can call that one a metaverse. It's basically Google Maps, right? They added like AR aspects, they added animals, and everything is anchored as a one layer of content on top of maps. And so that alone is, if you want a metaverse, it's got the interaction with other digital characters, in this case the fox, is persistent. There is a map, right? And it feels like a little bit of a
Oops.
red box. We have their virtual and virtually limitless experiences, like what Meta is showing, but also I'm thinking, you know, the Centraland and all those where the environment is completely virtual and there's no limits to it because it's not directly tied to the real world. And then in the middle, we have different flavors of that. We have situations where the metaverse is virtual, but it's a digital twin of the real world. There are definitely several companies in that space. Or we also have companies like Niantic and the same and Adobe itself, allowing people to create AR content layers on top of real world based maps and platforms. And so those are like some categories of the different flavors. There's also the in-between. And also sometimes you can be in one metaverse and then you can have a portal into a different type, right? If I'm on the purple one and I'm waiting for the bus to come, I can have in the bus stop, actually they were doing a lot of this in San Francisco, these portals, and then you get in and it's full VR. So you all of a sudden you're all the way to the left. And so these are like
it's a fascinating environment. So Stefano, I think I really like the categorization. I think that's really valuable. I mean, so when I present and discuss that, I say it's a physical representation as a digital representation of the physical world, which again I think leaves all these opportunities open. And I think even being in a 2D environment, being a laptop can be actually part of the metaverse, if you like, and almost an entry that you are, on the. I mean, even here for our streaming guests, you are basically part of kind of this specific metaverse, and when you put your headset on, you are actually immersed, which is then kind of a different intensity and level. Would you agree to that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, there's basically another axis that you called out, which I really like, which is how immersive is the experience and what device are you connecting. So it goes from like phone to desktop to, if you want, big home theater to full VR headset, right? So it's basically another axis in the metaverse. It's like level of immersion basically in the experience and depth of the device, if you want.
Right.
Absolutely. And then we can go to the next slide. And so now that we have categorized a little bit the type of metaverses, if you want, from like a map and like a platform perspective, it's interesting for businesses to actually look at what makes a metaverse. What we call the Metaverse Stack, right? We are used to talk about stack because of the internet. And then there's like, the front end, the back end, the database, all these components. And I think for the metaverse, it's very similar. And so we created this stack of like 5 different steps. We start with the creative ecosystem because that's also where Adobe really shines, and that's where our main businesses. And so you may remember that Adobe's journey in 3D had 3 acquisitions, one of them being a lot larger than the others. They started with Mixamo in 2015. That was my company. We brought in a lot of 3D DNA, I would say. And then just a few years later, we acquired Allegorithmic, a French company, a lot larger. That is the leading company for all the substance tools for texturing and material creation. And then we acquired also Medium, the VR sculpting tool that was a Facebook at the time. And so those are like the 3 acquisitions that Adobe made. We have now a pretty big division that is looking after 3D and immersive experiences. And we have announced last week also a modeler, so a full desktop and VR solution for modeling, for 3D modeling. So we can now cover modeling, texture, and creation of materials, and really take your 3D goods into the metaverse so that they can be represented in the most the highest fidelity possible. Because that is the number one thing that we are telling businesses to get metaverse ready. Be prepared to create a digital twin for everything you're selling, right? There's going to be more and more of those stores in the in the metaverse, and people who want to interact digitally with your goods. Or flip it around, if I buy something, I may want to wear it myself in the physical world, but I may want my avatar also to wear it. So if I buy
that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, sorry, and just kind of building on that, it's interesting that you say that, and I think it's I mean, even in stores like kind of Amazon and Shopify's, you need more and more these 3D environments of the real objects. So it blends almost in, that you always need kind of that version, that 3D version of anything.
Yeah, because if I'm investing in something that I like and my avatar represents myself in the metaverse, I would want my avatar to look like me, probably, right? And that brings up the concept of portability. So imagine how much money you will spend on a pair of shoes that you can only wear on Mondays, right? It will not be that interesting, right? And so here is a little bit similar. Like if you buy an asset for your avatar, but there's only a handful of metaverses where you can bring it, it's not that valuable. So portability of the assets is going to be key, because you want to buy, let's say I buy a pair of Nike shoes that I really like. I want my avatar to wear it, and I want my avatar to wear it in every metaverse I'm visiting. So it's consistent, right? That's a pretty important point. And so we are working with the industry standards, GLTF or USDC, for really being able to port and to carry along all those assets and preserving the fidelity that we want to different metaverses. I think that's going to be a very important aspect.
Very good.
And then if we continue up in the stack from the creation point, the next one is engines and delivery. And this is an aspect that probably is not top of mind for most people, because we are so used to how the internet works, where if I create an image or a video, the browser can natively render that. But if you guys remember the times before YouTube, when you had to share a video, you had to email it to someone, or FTP or file transfer, because the FLV format was still not natively supported by the browsers. And then YouTube happened, and then it became ubiquitous to actually embed video on a web browser. But for AR and VR, it's a little bit like that now. There is no ubiquitous player viewer, if you want, in the browser that is so ubiquitous and works over all kinds of devices, right? There is always an engine that needs to play back that experience, and there's many different engines. There's Unity, there's Unreal. Adobe created Mercury. It's our lightweight engine so that we can, our creators can make AR experiences and distribute them to users. So very different target. It's not for gaming, but it's more for brand experiences or in the future we're going to add more like product configurators. But there is always an engine that needs to be distributed with the experience so that the experience can be played back. And maybe over time, excuse me, that will go away as a need, but now we are basically in the pre-YouTube era of video, if you want, to make an equivalent. And that's why for businesses for several years now will be really important to understand, okay, here's my content, but how do I get that content in front of my audience? What engine are those metaverses running off? Or what engine do I need to bring to my consumer a given experience? So I think that's a pretty important part. And of course, working between the engines, we are trying to establish standards so the content can load and look the same or pretty close to the same on every engine.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you have those two basically unlocks achieved, then at that point is where you can add a commerce layer on top, which is where businesses actually make money. They can create a store inside the metaverse. They can create their own metaverse, or they can create product activations inside the metaverse. So I think these are like the three possible paths depending on the size of the investment. Biggest investment, they build their own metaverse. Smaller investment, creating stores in a lot of existing metaverses. And then the third one is just creating one-off product activation experiences that just bring awareness to the brand, and those can be sparkled around different metaverses.
Stefano, I would have a question there. So when you see, I think, these two trends, so one is build stores in different metaverses like Decentraland and Sandbox and whatever have you, and Infiniverse and all these different platforms versus actually building your own metaverse. Kind of, do you already see or foresee, or what's your view? What a future scenario might look like?
I mean, building your own, you need a massive critical mass because this is not an incremental effort. Like, nobody wants to go to a metaverse if there's nobody there, right? And we saw this pan out with the virtual worlds about like a decade ago, where I remember when I raised money for Mixamo that year, there were about 300 virtual worlds companies that got funding. But how many can you name? There were like a few survivors, like Second Life was one, is one. They still have like over 500,000 users on a monthly basis. Another one was like IMView, but there were basically a handful that broke through like the noise and reached that critical mass. And so it's a big investment that you have to sustain over time. You need probably a ton of celebrities to keep it alive and interesting and events. And so it's not going to be a trivial effort. It's a lot easier to, of course, create a store inside an existing one that has a lot of foot traffic already. The same way, if you're building a physical store inside a mall, you're guaranteed basically already a lot of foot traffic. Otherwise, you will have to attract the audience to your own metaverse, which is a lot more challenging.
Thank you.
And so I think we have only like 20 minutes left. So maybe I don't want to take all the time with the presentation, but I will show just maybe 2 more slides. We can go to the next one. Sorry, one more. That describes basically how we see the experience being created. This is nothing, rocket science. It's pretty obvious. So there are 2 aspects to an experience, or even like an asset that lives in the metaverse. There's the asset itself, the model, the mesh, the material, texture, the animation you may have, and then there's the interactivity. And those 2 together combined create what is the experience. And it can be not necessarily like an avatar, it could be a car. If I have a car in the metaverse, I want to be able to tap on the door and the door should open. or if I have like a specific product that I'm selling to my customers, I want them to be able to tap on it and see how that product works and behaves in the real world. And so the interactivity part has been really hard to do, and has been something that only developers have been able to create for a very long time. So if you don't have in your team someone that knows C# or C++ and can code this in Unity or Unreal, it will be really hard to create all that behavior. And if you look at how many people in the world are coding, it's only like several million compared to how many people in the world will want to create content for the metaverse. And so if we skip 3 slides, I can show you. There you go, perfect, right there. So at the beginning of the journey of Adobe creating tools for metaverse and for interactivity, we really wanted to move away from the limitation of needing to have a developer in your team to code something that then you want to expose to your consumer. So we wanted to democratize interactivity. We want to make it easy for anyone to create interactive content. And so we started building this tool called Adobe Aero, but most interesting for you, we spent years doing user research on how can we take the complexity of the logic that goes into the interactivity and expose it to the users that are unsophisticated. Could be artists, could be creatives, could be marketers, could be a project manager that is trying to get a lot of cool content out in the metaverse. How can we expose to them an interface that they will understand, that is simple enough to understand like on the first minute, but also can scale a little bit and create more complex experiences. And so the world has tried for a long time data flow approaches. So instead of having to code where you have to learn a syntax, a coding environment, an IDE and all that stuff, they try to like abstract into a visual paradigm what the coding logic is. And we have found that this still requires like a coder mindset. Because a creative person will not think about data and data being processed. Will think about like the subject of the interaction and how that will behave. And so we tested a bunch of different approaches for this, and we threw out the data flow approach, and we settled for this new concept that is called trigger and action. And since then, a lot of people have adopted it, including Apple in Reality Composer. We share those specifications with them. And it's getting quite a bit of traction because it's a little bit like Legos. Anyone can add a trigger and then an action. But if you stack a lot of them, both in parallel and in series, you can even create like mini games. So it's quite powerful. But again, the components are simple. And most importantly, anybody can know at any time what action is affecting what object in the scene, which is not true for the data flow approach, because in the data flow it is the data that is flowing through those operations as opposed to the object of the scene. And so in the last iteration of our behavior builder, that's how we call it, we also added the ability to filter selected. So you can select an object and query, okay, what are the actions that are affecting that one? So we're getting a lot of traction. I see a lot of startups adopting either something almost identical or very similar. And I think this is going to be what people will use, the vast majority of people will use, of course, to create interactivity in metaverse-like experiences. There will still, of course, be the super deep, amazing things that people will create coding. But that will be the tip of the pyramid, and there will be like a large user base, I think, that will instead use this kind of trigger action approach that we are also trying to push into a standard, because we want this to be a standardized way that any metaverse can read, parse, excuse me, and apply to the content, so that again, not just the assets are portable, but the full experience becomes portable across metaverses.
Very good. Thank you.
I have a bunch more slides, but we can also stop here for questions.
Yeah. I think that's a good point to just to see if there are questions from the audience. Frank, Carsten, do you have questions for Stefano? Oliver, anything kind of from the stream, from online?
And by the way, thank you for setting this up in San Francisco. I appreciate it.
So it's not that too far, not too far for you.
Oh, I can almost see my house from here.
So which direction are you?
I'm just on the side of the Golden Gate, north in Moraine.
Oh, okay, beautiful.
Just 10 minutes north of the Golden Gate. Yeah.
Ah, nice. So I can see the Golden Gate Bridge over there. So yeah. So yeah, it's early morning, though it looks like here in the middle of the day. Any questions here from the audience? Frank, Carsten, just unmute yourself. Abid, do you?
I'd be keen to see some other slides if we still have time. If that's okay
sure.
with you, Stefano.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, then let's go ahead.
Absolutely. So there are a few. So maybe let's just go to the next slide. This gives you a little bit of an overview of how an experience can be created in Aero, and where you have the different characters, you have some objects, you have a backdrop, and then there you see below the trigger and action. So it gives you an idea of how simple and non-intimidating the interface is. But we realize also that we need to go one step further and also allow people to create 3D models more easily. Like right now, basically, sculpting in 3D is extremely hard, and it requires really a lot of experience. And so, if we skip 2 slides, so there's an effort inside inside the Substance ecosystem to actually make a procedural modeling a thing that is very, very accessible. So this is a screenshot from a product called Substance Designer, which is the closest thing that is to basically an artist tool for programmers, if you want, in the sense that we do have there a data flow model where people can basically create logic in the assets themselves. But the beauty is we also have tools that can just ingest that. So a small relatively small community of technical artists can set up assets that then you can tweak with just sliders, and they can distribute that to anyone without any technical knowledge can just tweak those sliders and make combinatorial variations of those. And so you can go to the next slide. This one I will have also a video, but I think you can get a sense. So this is a plant, and then on the right you see a bunch of sliders that define, how dense the foliage is, what's the geometric pattern, and you can create like entire words using this. So this is called structure. It's basically bringing this procedural approach to modeling. All the Substance tools have been like leader in the world for texturing, but now we are expanding to modeling, and so we will see more and more this year and in the coming months, more content that we will make available online that is procedural. So people can just grab a generic asset and then start tweaking and making their own. So that's a big step towards democratization of content creation. And then one more thing, this would be really great as a video, but I will have to see if I can actually play back. It may be complicated, but at least I can talk to. So if you go to the next slide, another aspect that we found is extremely hard to do is facial animation. And I saw actually here on Engage that you guys have that, which is pretty cool. Basically when there's audio coming out, the avatar is moving, but we have developed a new system that can basically take audio as an input and has been trained with neural networks and can actually have the characters speak with like pretty perfect phonemes. So that's another aspect where we look at it and like, okay, animating lip syncing basically characters in the metaverse it's going to be extremely hard, and people use mocap and have animators with very deep skills. We want to democratize that, and we are leveraging machine learning to do it, which is kind of like the recipe that we are following. So we are one by one trying to remove all these technical roadblocks and replace them with machine learning capabilities that are completely hidden under the hood, and we expose to the final user the simplest possible user interface. That's kind of our recipe, I would say, what we have been doing for the last decade.
Yeah, just wanted to say, I think that's what makes Adobe products so powerful. I mean, they're very easy, quite easy to use, and very powerful in their functionality. Well, that's fascinating. So so you basically have an animation. So how is that then? I mean, from there to kind of fake news, isn't probably that far, is it?
Yeah, we have seen a lot of that, and sadly, it's very easy to basically manufacture videos today where you just put like a new audio, and then you can basically have the voice of the person you want to animate itself. Even in like pure 2D, people are being able to do it like in just straight 2D without even the 3D model. So that's among us. It's not going to go away, but there are initiatives like the Content Authenticity Initiative, the Adobe spun up last year. They are aimed at also debunking these like deep fakes, and given that a lot of the content comes out of our tools, we have more of a chance to figure out if the content is authentic or not. And so we are basically exposing this as a service to check the authenticity of an image. For now, we expose this in Photoshop, and so people can tell if a photo was completely manufactured or not. We have ways to detect that.
Okay, great. Is that also a space where then blockchain technologies come into play, or?
Yeah, the blockchain technology is going to be key for content portability, because it's a great way to have this decentralized infrastructure to track a smart contract that says that I own this avatar or I own this piece of content, and I can take it from one metaverse to another. So I think that will be a great enabler from the point of view of like certifying ownership and IP of content. Absolutely. I have just one. Yeah, I have just one more slide. The next one is just the last thing I want to. I usually bring up when I talk to businesses about the metaverse is this concept of map. So we went through asset creation, experience creation, where we had interactivity. In the delivery, you have the engine, but also in all this, the map where the content lives is important. And if it is a virtual world, it's completely arbitrary. But if it is tied to the real world, then you need to think about what service does my business use to anchor that experience on the real world. And it comes at a different level of investment and a different level of accuracy. But the holy grail is to create a visual positioning system so that anyone can take the phone or the headset, look out in the world, and the content will appear perfectly anchored and positioned exactly with 6 degrees of freedom accuracy where we want it. And right now there are ways to do that, but where we have to ask the creator to actually scan an environment, and then we have to ask the consumer the experience to look around so that we can relocalize. But there are efforts, for example, Niantic Lightship has efforts to create this more accurate 3D world map. And of course, we have Street View data from Google and Apple that today allows you to relocalize content. Not as accurate, but it's a start. And so we're trying to build like an abstraction layer on top of this. So again, you don't have to deal with all this complexity, but it's something to keep in mind, especially if you're interested in metaverses that are in AR or they are like mimicking basically a real world location. The map aspect is also one that the industry is trying to figure out, and it's not come to full completion yet.
Fascinating. Thank you, Stefano. Any questions? Any questions online, Oliver? Okay, maybe you have a question, then feel free to ask. Otherwise, Frank, Carsten, Abid, something?
Just touching on the avatar that you had earlier, and I think also in regards to your question also about, Michael, about blockchain, do you see potentially NFTs, and I've gone straight there with the kind of N word there, but NFTs and those being kind of pivotal to each unique avatar as part of the blockchain, so you can technically exist in different metaverses, but you can bring your identity along with you.
Oh, absolutely. So there's a great example is a company called Ready Player Me. I don't know if you're familiar with. And they basically created an SDK for creating like an avatar system. And then they distributed the SDK to more than like 1,000 different games, metaverses, virtual worlds, MMOs, and so on. So through those thousands of metaverses, their avatar is completely portable. And then the only way they are monetizing is actually through NFTs, because they will make like this unique version of, they just did like this steampunk pirate characters. You can buy them for some Ethereum crypto, and then you can own them and you can wear those assets in your avatar, and then you can take it through different worlds, right? So again, because of portability, the digital assets becomes a lot more valuable. Through NFTs, people can monetize and can buy them through blockchain technology. The ownership and the smart contract can be tracked through metaverses, and this is basically a full-fledged economy around your digital identity, basically. So pretty powerful.
Fascinating. Yeah, totally. I think that we will see a lot in that space. So my kind of last question would be, so what's the recommendation? Because we started from getting Metaverse ready. What is your suggested first step for a company to do?
Yeah, the number one thing that we say is in order to be Metaverse ready, you have to start thinking about creating digital twins of all your goods, your products, and experiences tied to that, and create basically a pipeline in your company for content creation, so that everything that you're selling, you have really high quality, high fidelity 3D models and digital representation that you can place in a metaverse, and then start like developing the muscle so that you have a content pipeline either in-house or outsourced with vendors that you can rely on. They can really, like, at scale, produce that content that will represent your brand in the metaverse.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that advice. If there are no other questions, then Stefano, it was really great pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael.
In this beautiful engagement environment at your home place, basically. So you can actually fly home now from here, teleport yourself to home. Yeah. If you want, you can still kind of stick around for a moment and chat with Stefano. And I hope to welcome you next one. We have a very, very exciting guest again, talking again about the metaverse and how the metaverse can be used for something good. And I think, Abid, you just kind of placed something here.
Yeah, it was just for Stefano, just to give him a lift home. We've got you an Engage helicopter.
Oh, nice.
So,
okay, let me see if I can get in.
Yeah, sure, no problem. I can pop you inside. Just a bit of fun.
There we go.
Thank you. All right.
Okay.
Very
our
cool.
guest online, thank you very much as well. And I hope you enjoyed it. Again, you can get the link. That will be also on the VR Business Club website. Just go to vrbusinessclub.com and you will see kind of the link to the Metaverse homepage of Adobe, and also to the very good white paper, which gives you a little additional information. So with that, I want to thank you again and wish you a wonderful remaining day. And I see Stefano is managing his helicopter chopper to get home. So thanks, Abid, for that lift.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Okay, see you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thank you.